Hey, this is Abe.
And this is Alexa.
Welcome back to the Get Out and Enjoy Life podcast, or GOEL.
Today we're talking about how we first met.
Yeah, so I had just moved to Washington State, probably I don't know, 3 months before, because our first date was in February.
Really? Was it 3 months?
Yeah, because I think I started my job on January 1st of 2019. No, 2020.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we met in February, was it?
February, so only 1 month.
Oh, yeah, it was only 1 month.
It wasn't 3.
That's right. So, yeah, how did we meet?
On a little app called Hinge, which I actually never knew if I would really meet somebody and have a long-term relationship on an app. For me, on my side, I've lived in kind of the area that we live in now my entire life, and anyways, I've been on dating apps and things before, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't going that well. And actually, when I got on Hinge, I was like, okay, this is the last kind of time I'm getting on these apps, and I'm really gonna try to just get out there, meet people, date people, and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your side was.
I had tried dating apps probably for 3 years, because I'm from Maui originally, but ended up moving to Great Falls, Montana for a job, and for my first job, and had tried dating out there on multiple different apps, anything you can think of, basically. I paid subscriptions.
I didn't pay subscriptions, but I've been on all the different apps.
Yeah, and so I actually saw the advertisement for Hinge, I think off of when I went to a movie or something. It was on the trailers for or all the previews and stuff in the theaters, which was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. I feel like movies have kind of gotten away from that, but remember they were doing actual commercials in movie theaters,
right?
Really during COVID times or a little bit prior to COVID. Mm-hmm. And it was advertisement for Hinge, and their slogan was, it's like a little white box and it has legs and a face and arms, and then they're it's the app to delete because you find your significant other, right?
Yeah.
So
anyways, so how did the interaction on the app go?
So I reached out to you first. Mm-hmm. I remember on the man side, maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly, but I seem to remember that, in order to another person's profile or photo, you couldn't just go like it. You had to write some sort of comment. And so, which I kind of liked, because it kind of made you really think, do you really like this person?
Yeah.
Made you dig into it a little bit more. It's not just swipe, on Tinder or anything like that.
Right.
So, I remember seeing a photo of you with a giraffe. I forget what you had said. And then I saw you were on a balcony, and you said you were in Verona. Mm-hmm. And I said you were, it looks like you travel or something along those lines, I think I said.
Yeah.
And you kind of led up with that you were traveling.
Yeah, I remember Abe specifically talking about that Verona picture, because I happened to study abroad when I was in Italy. And if you listen to past episodes, we were just in Italy. And it was just an amazing trip. Anyways, we started talking about traveling. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the things you had on your profile was about you going to Thailand. And so we started getting into, what kind of trips have you been on? What was the best thing that you did there? And we really connected on that piece.
Yeah, and I had just been in Thailand in November of the previous year. So a month or so before moving to Washington. And we connected on that. And one of the things that I was fearful of that's happened to me in the past was women would friend zone me. And so I really kind of pushed for we're going to either date, or we're going to I'm not looking for a friend in the short. I mean, I am, but not.
Yeah.
So.
And also I'll say one thing that Abe told me later on was that you were really trying to get on the date quickly.
Yes.
Not just be in a talking phase for a long time.
A little bit, because I was like, yeah, let's go out and have a coffee date. Like a week later, I think after we started.
Oh, it was not a week later.
I think it was a week later.
It was sooner than that. It was like, let's go this Saturday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, I have to work, but we can go before I go to work. And so, and then you're like, hey, go ahead and pick a coffee shop. And I'm like,
wait, before that though, I'm going to stop you because we actually had what would be our second date planned before that first date. Yeah. So the second date was going to be going out to dinner, hanging out in our area, going into like the city kind of area. So we had that plan from a week from when we started talking. And then something happened. You were like, hey, I'm free right before, I go to work. Let's go get a coffee. I honestly was really hesitant about that date just because the dating apps hadn't like worked that well. So it wasn't like I wasn't going to go, but I was just like, like, how's this going to go? We're meeting really quickly after we're starting to talk.
Yeah, and my whole reasoning was because I was like, I didn't want to be friend zoned, but I didn't say that at the time. And then I remember, you were like, pick a place, and I was like, I've just been here for like a month or whatever. So I picked this place. It was called Bluebeard Coffee, but I didn't call it Bluebeard. I actually called it Bluebird. Yeah. And then I'm like Googling, like, and where is this?
I'm looking it up, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, that's right, yeah.
You're like, where is it? I'm like, then I'm looking, and I'm like, I can't find it.
And I'm like, do you mean Bluebeard? And he's like, oh, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't honestly know. I just agreed with you. I'm like, yeah, that looks like something good. Great. Yeah. So we met there. I had gotten there prior to Alexa, I think. Yeah. And got a table, and then Alexa walked in. Yeah, and
I remember you were wearing this. I don't know why I have like the moment. It's stuck in my mind, but you came out. It was kind of like a rainy day.
Yeah, your Pacific Northwest day.
Gray. And Abe came out in his green jacket. He had this green Patagonia jacket on.
There's a whole story behind that jacket.
And I just remember you saying he's like, I want to say your name correctly because my name is spelled Alexa, and a lot of people say Alexa, they say Alexa, they say all kinds of different things. And so I just remember him saying that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like a lot of people don't do that and make sure they say my name correctly. So I don't know, something about that felt special to me.
And honestly, I don't remember that at all. I'd like to say I do remember that, but no, I don't remember that. I mean, it was stressful in the moment. So for me, I remember I got a chai latte, and then you talked about your book binding, and that's really all I remember. Oh, and then I wanted to kiss you when we walked out of the car, but
which I didn't know.
No, neither of us. I mean, I hadn't dated at all really prior to this, so
my experience was minimal.
But it was in the morning. I was going to be going to work, so I was like, no.
It didn't really feel like the right time, and it wasn't like. What was interesting about the date was that it wasn't like romantic.
No.
It was like...
It was almost like friends, honestly.
Honestly, yeah. And it was about getting to like know each other. Like, do we want to continue this?
Do we want to go on this other date that we already set up?
Yeah, that we already set up and planned.
Like, sorry, I can't go.
Right. No. So, that was our first date.
Yeah. So then the following date, you actually straightened your hair, I remember.
I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my hair was up in a bun the first date.
Yeah. And so then you straightened your hair, and I didn't actually really know that it was straightened. Like, I didn't know
it was not straightened.
Right. Or regardless, because I didn't actually know what your hair looked like. Because even in your photos, your hair was always up and everything.
Yeah. Sometimes it was straight in the photos, but not.
Yeah, you had said you went and got your hair straightened. I was like, you're trying to look nice. That's good sign, right?
I was so nervous for the second date. I think I literally bought a new sweater. Like, I straightened my hair, which is not cheap to get done. No. Like, I went and got it done. And, like, I think I put on some makeup. Like, I was just, like, trying to look as cute as possible.
Yeah, and you did look cute. You looked very cute. And honestly, I don't remember a whole bunch. I do remember I had never kissed anyone in prior, and I was like what, 27?
26.
26. Yeah. And so I had like watched a whole bunch of videos on how to kiss on YouTube, which like that was my extent of getting ready. Which that's probably a typical man move, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I dressed nice, I think, hopefully,
Yeah, you did.
but I don't remember what I wore at
Yeah,
all.
we did go
So
to a Thai place. I
we went
think
to
that
the
was my
Indochine.
recommendation to
Yeah,
go to Indochine.
which we talked about in our previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up sitting by this water, the pond
The water
waterfall
feature, yeah.
that they have in there.
Yeah.
I don't even really remember what I got, but
I don't either.
Yeah.
But I just remember it was a really good meal, and we talked the whole time for however long we were there.
yeah.
After that meal, we still wanted to spend time with each other. So we're like, why don't we go on a little walk? And so I think we kind of went on a little walk,
Well,
but then it
back
was
up
raining.
a little bit.
Oh.
There's like during the meal, I said something that maybe wasn't totally politically correct. I didn't think it was that off, and you like corrected me right then and
did.
there, and I was like, oh man, I better watch myself. Like I didn't mean any harm by anything I said, but yeah, you're like, nope, don't say that. I was like, okay, I won't say it. Sorry. And that happened like twice during our walk too. You're like,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
and I was like, okay. I'm like, but I really like that about you, honestly. I was like, yeah, you're standing up for what you like, you're not afraid to like talk back, basically. And I was like, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
because you want another half. You don't want someone that's just gonna like follow whatever you say, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I think early on when we were dating, I don't even know if I might have said this on the app, but I think I asked you, what are you looking for?
Yeah, you
like
said that.
on the
Yeah,
app.
that scared me a lot because you're like, because basically you were, yeah, what was I looking for? I'm like, well, I'm just looking for a girlfriend and, to get to know someone.
Yeah.
And I told you like I had never dated really before, I think on the app, which was a big thing for me to be admitting on an app.
But it was just so, when you said that, it was just so brief. So sometimes when people say, oh, I haven't dated a lot, they have maybe had a significant other when they were young, like really young, or
and there's
it can mean so many different things.
And there's also, you can do things and not date people.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Tinder, basically. That's not
there's
dating,
that
really.
too.
I mean, there's different things. People consider dating very different things. Yeah.
Yeah, and so early on, I had asked you that, and I think you asked me back like what I meant, and I was kind of like, well, I'm looking for something more serious. Like, I'm not looking to mess around.
Yeah.
Like, and just kind of go on a fluke date and, that's it. I mean, if that's what happened,
and that's what
we
both wanted.
But
we both wanted something serious.
We were on the same page, and so that's why I felt personally okay with going on the date.
Yeah, and so we ended up walking around in the area, went to this place called, I think it's Archie's, is it? Because
it's a
arcade.
Dorky's.
That's
and
right.
And actually, we couldn't walk because it was really rainy night that we went out, and we took the little tram type thing that runs in Tacoma.
And it's like trying to build up my like what's the word? I can't think of the word all of a sudden. Like courage, basically, to hold your hand. Again, like I'd never dated prior to this, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold her hand, and then I didn't do it on the tram. And I think you were expecting it. And then we walked from the tram to the arcade, and I didn't do it there either.
But you know what? When we were in the arcade, we were playing games and stuff like that. It was really fun and really light. And I think there was a point where you grabbed my hand for one of the
But you were beating
games.
me on every single game. I do remember that. And I was trying to
I was
win.
not taking it easy at all.
No, I was legitimately trying to beat you, and I don't know what was going on.
I was correcting him, and I was beating him at all the games.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, yeah, and then ended up holding your hand. That worked out well.
Abe said something like, come over here, and he
what
grabbed my hand.
Yeah, I tried to be sly,
like,
right?
Okay.
Yeah, super sly, right?
Yeah.
No. And then your brother was actually in town, which he doesn't even live here.
he doesn't.
But we didn't actually see him.
We didn't see him, but what happened is that, we still wanted to spend time together even after we went to Dorky's. So I was like, do you want to go to a bar? And so we went to a bar that was kind of across the street. And I think I had been... Actually, I didn't know he was there in the area. I didn't know till much later. But we went to a bar. We were chatting there. We had a beer, whatever. And we just kind of hung out. And then we ended up like walking back to our cars. And we spent like 6 hours together.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
It was
like
a
dinner
very
was like
long
at
date.
6 or 7. We left like at 12 or 1.
Yeah, back to our cars. And we walked back in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was raining. That's right. We were trying to walk underneath, I think, like the UW kind of area.
But we
like,
looped
cover.
the UW a couple times, and we talked about board games, and we talked about like all this random
religion.
Yeah, religion, like where we grew up, like all these different things. We really got like into the depths of everything.
And then I went in to go and kiss you, and honestly, I know it was a bad kiss, but like, hey, it was my first kiss, so
yeah.
And you accepted it, thank God.
Yes.
But like,
it was a kiss,
and it was a kiss, and that's it.
Abe, be honest.
Yeah,
it was our
a
first kiss.
And then I tried it again, and it was a kiss.
It was a kiss, yeah.
On the lips.
You know, I mean, that was okay. Like, I really loved his personality, and I loved the time that we spent together. It was just really fun.
Yeah, it flowed really well. Like, it wasn't hard to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then you, like, had things to say, like, you know, you're intelligent, and so, and then the third date, we were like, I was like, I want to see you again. You're like, it was the next day.
Yes.
We met. So you're like, oh, you can come to this park next to my house. I don't even know where this park is, but it's kind of interesting because since I had just moved to the area, all these places I'd never been to, so when I think back to these, like our first couple of dates, they almost seem like they happened in a different area because like I didn't have any concept of where things were.
Right.
And so like, it just seems like it happened in like almost like a different city.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't have any cementation or what anything was. So like I know we went to a park, but honestly I could not tell you where this park was at all.
It's in Puyallup.
Oh, sure.
But
great.
It's actually not that far. But I ended up being like, oh, what could I do that's really nice? And so I was going to Starbucks, and I was like, hey, what do you want? Do you want a Starbucks drink? And so I brought him a coffee, and it was the morning. It was probably like 9, 10 a.m. or something like that. And we met at the park, and there's a huge lake in the middle of the park. And so we kind of looped that a few times and just kind of talked about anything and everything.
Yeah, but I do remember you sat me down on one of the benches, and you're like,
yeah,
okay.
Just take a break from
Yeah,
walking.
to take a break is what you say, but you're like, now spill basically your whole dating history of everything. And I'm like, oh man, okay, I'm going to be truthful, why not? But like, that was really tough because I didn't have any is the short of it. And so,
which was totally okay. I didn't want it to be like he was downplaying,
right,
his dating
you didn't
history.
Want me to be like a player.
Yeah, and just be like, I don't know, play me, because people have played me. And so I was just curious. I was like, I want to be really like honest and upfront, about these things like very early on, so we can decide if we want to continue to see each other.
Right. And so I wasn't sure if you were going to want to continue to keep seeing me because of being new to everything. And you did. And then I think our next date was like, we went and walked down at Point Ruston, like maybe the next week or something like that. And
did we go out to dinner then?
I don't remember what.
Bowling.
We went bowling.
Okay,
I thought those were two separate dates, but no, that makes sense now.
They were.
No, I think they were together because we went bowling, and then we were gonna maybe play mini golf, but we didn't.
Yeah, and we still wanted to like hang out.
But no, I think that was a separate date.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a separate date, but I think that was later on. But yeah, because we went and walked on Point Ruston, and then you're like, we went and sat at a bench, like under the kind of gazebo thing. Yeah, you know what I'm going to say.
I
Yeah.
do.
Because, yeah.
He brings this
Right.
up often.
Right. Well, I was trying to get the courage to kiss you again, and you're like, "Do you want to try that kiss again?" And I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness." Yeah, because I was having trouble building courage. So yeah, and that's kind of like where
the beginning stages of our dating. And what's interesting is that shortly after we started dating, what happened?
The pandemic hit.
The pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we had only, we met in February, and the pandemic hit
in March.
Was it March?
Mm-hmm.
So we had only
In
dated
mid-March.
like a month, been on like 4 to 6 dates. I remember our last date out, and I say out because it was prior to like the last date before like the actual news of the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
We had gone and walked at Chambers Bay, right? Mm-hmm. And then we were like, oh, we'll go out to eat, and we went out to this Greek restaurant.
That is still there.
Yeah, it's still there. We should go back actually.
Yeah.
And prior to this, we had we were still eating meat and everything. Mm-hmm. But we were sitting at a table there, and the food was good. And then
it was really
good. I feel like that night.
Yeah, I literally feel like that literally was the day before everything shut down.
Yeah.
I feel like it was like March 17th or something very specific, because I remember it being around my birthday.
Yeah.
That everything just we all went on lockdown. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time we ate out for like quite a while.
Yeah, a couple of months at least. Or even were able to go out and do anything. Yeah. Like in terms of like date wise.
Yeah, and so we had to get really creative with what we did. And I think going through the lockdown together and choosing to do that was like big. I mean, we got to know each other very quickly. Yeah. Mm-hmm, on a really deep level.
Really, because it was just the two of us. There's no other, things to distract, really. Mm-hmm. So, we did a lot of different dates of, really, most of them happened in the apartment that I was renting at the time. Mm-hmm. And we did one where, I had grown up, making sushi, or knowing how to, and so... Mm-hmm. I bought sushi mats. Yep. The bamboo mats for that. And you'd never made sushi before. It was hard to find all the stuff for it because I wasn't familiar with the area. It's like going to Walmart when I could have gone to the Asian markets here. It's just. Yeah. And then we also made spring rolls.
Did so much cooking.
I think they're actually called summer rolls here. The ones with the rice paper. But I
remember we made that one meal with the tomatoes. Oh, yes. And there was you had to carve out the tomatoes and put balsamic. Oh man, it was so good. We've talked about that a couple times. We've never remade it. Never. I don't know. We have a photo somewhere of it. Actually,
I think we put some sugar in it too.
Yeah, sugar.
Oh man.
And then did you have to cook it?
Yeah, we baked it.
Yeah. I remember Abe still talks about those tomatoes.
But we've never remade it in 3.5 years? Yeah. Something like that.
That was so early on, yeah.
And then we did a fort night.
We built a fort. We painted pumpkins.
We did drink and sip.
Sip and paint. Where we watched a YouTube video and actually had our little drink and then we're painting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We had a lot of movies.
Had a lot of tea nights.
Yeah. Just because I'm not really into that drinking that much, and so.
But yeah, I don't even know what else we did.
Yeah.
Board games,
card games.
We'd
go. Oh, one of the other things is, prior to work, you would come over and we'd go walk around the
I forgot. We did that a lot.
Yeah, and you would get up early too.
Yeah, I'd get up early. I'd drive 30 minutes over to Abe or wherever we would meet. And we would go on a walk right before he went to work. Or sometimes we'd go get breakfast. Or sometimes I'd just come to your apartment and hang out for 2 hours.
For real, yeah. And I'd be getting up and I'm like, I don't want to get up, but I do want to get up. I want to keep sleeping. But I didn't even have to drive. That was the thing. So I'd just roll out of bed.
Right.
But we'd go and look at houses, remember?
Yep, we went and walked around neighborhoods.
We would buy that house.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, that was a good sign. Like, we would buy that house, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
seeing a future.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we got through the pandemic and that way.
Yeah.
We found a lot of cool areas in the, like, Tacoma area, even outside of it. We found a lighthouse.
Yeah, it's like we got familiar with the area.
Yeah. It really forced me to get truly familiar with the area because I didn't even know anything
Yeah.
about the area.
Yeah.
And you didn't, I don't think, were super familiar with Tacoma.
Not some parts of some parts I was familiar with, but other parts I didn't go into very often.
Yeah, and like also my sister and her current now husband ended up buying a house, and I remember I took you over the. You were really like surprised I had asked you to come over for lunch, like at my sister's house. The reason
Yeah.
I had was like yeah, you can meet my sister, and they had just bought the house, so they were painting and stuff. So I figured it would be like an informal kind of like lunch. There wasn't even furniture or anything yet. Like just sit on the ground. You're like, I'm coming over to your sister's house. Like, did you talk to them already about everything? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because Abe and I were not official yet when this happened.
Right.
And so it felt like a big step meeting some of his family. And I was like, well, we're not exclusive yet, like to my knowledge.
And then also there was the race factor too, really.
Yeah.
Like you're like, did you show them a picture of me? I'm like,
Yeah.
honestly, at that moment, I was like, I wasn't even thinking about race. I had a lot of education to do on my end.
Yeah.
Still, but yeah, I was like, yeah, I've shown them pictures of you, like.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I was accepted. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're an interracial couple, and so I don't know. Sometimes people are not accepting about that, or they have things to say. And so I was like, I want to make sure before I walk over there, there's not going to be any weirdness or, anything said that's going to make me feel uncomfortable. But they were very welcoming towards me and have been very loving and everything. So
then I remember you had asked, like, I was so offended, like that after we had lunch or something, you're like, you're not dating any other women, are you? And I'm like, or seeing any other women. I'm like, what? Like,
because
no.
The reason why I said that was because Abe and I were talking about something relating to dating apps, and he was like, oh yeah, these girls on here, they say this on their profile, or they say this in a message or whatever. And I was like thinking, oh, are you about to show me girls you've matched with that, your messages with them? And I was like, like, is he talking to multiple people? Like, is this happening with multiple people? And so he was offended that I brought that up. But honestly, you can see it from my side as well.
Yeah, I can see it from your side.
Like, if I said that vice versa, you'd be like, oh, like, who else are you talking to?
Yes, I can see it from your side. But I was like, from where I was coming from, it was more of like, I was interested to know what, your side of, because the male side of the dating apps is very different from the female side from what I've learned or gathered.
Right.
And honestly, I hadn't deleted my account, in all honesty, and I told you that.
I don't think I had either. I was waiting for us to do it together, basically.
I considered us completely exclusive since the first date, or really the second date. Yeah, But I was keeping it because I had all my messages from you and a lot of I don't know. It kind of helped to be able to look back through some of it, and I don't know. It was sentimental, I suppose, as well. But then you're like, delete it, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll delete it. But
that day we both deleted our profiles.
Well, I was very so upset about it because I was
and
on the
Abe
way
called
home.
me later.
I was driving. And I'm like, no, I gotta pull over. I gotta call her because I was like, what? You think I'm dating other people?
Yeah.
No, like we've been exclusive since the second date.
And how am I supposed to know that?
Like you were my girlfriend from the second date.
Yeah,
right?
We had never had the conversation. And so we aren't exclusive until we talk about it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I think about a month after we started dating, then we were exclusive.
I said,
after
can
that
I
time period.
label you as my girlfriend on Facebook or something like that, I think. Or add you as my girlfriend.
No, I remember you saying, so what are we?
Oh, in my mind, that's what I kind of was thinking.
Yeah, I
think.
was at your apartment. We were sitting on the couch. You're like, so what are we? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend or what? And I was like, yeah, I'm your girlfriend. And that's how the conversation went.
And that was it.
and that was it.
Yep.
And the rest was history.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So, yeah.
Gotta forgive some of the non-subtleties, I suppose. Yeah, it was both of our...
Yeah.
There's been a lot of learning.
A lot of learning.
For sure.
Yeah, and when we look back on those early moments, it's just kind of funny now.
Yeah, like a lot of learning in like relationship, like significant other, but then like Alexa said, there's interracial side or component, and I don't think you had any learning. It was all me for the interracial component. There's a lot of you were very patient, I should say.
Honestly, there was a lot of education at that time.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of me sharing experiences or like different thoughts.
I'm just gonna uncover your mic.
Also at that time, during the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement happened, which was like a huge point, you know, in history.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of protesting. There's a lot of emotions. I also was going through grad school at the time, as well as starting this new relationship. Grad school, I was working almost full time, on top of 3 classes where I had to commute pretty far to go to my classes.
I don't know how you did it. And then you're juggling a relationship as well.
Juggling a new relationship and trying to navigate that on top of the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a lot of emotions, a lot going on, you know, a lot of sadness about kind of what was going on in our country and what's been done to people who look like me, you know, and family members and things like that. And so, it was like a huge learning curve at that time.
Really? Yeah, for me, really. Like a huge learn. Like I got books that I read. And
Abe really educated himself.
Well, I mean, you were patient though. That was the other thing. Like,
I do think I had a lot of patience.
You had a lot of patience. So it was like,
like
nothing ever was said like to be hurtful or anything. But like some of the things, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like I had a lot of education to educate, right? Education to educate. But
I also saw you taking the time, like, to go out of your way to kind of learn about, you know, different things in history, different people, you know, just so you could be more aware of what was going on.
Yeah, and honestly, like, not to make any excuses for anything, but like growing up in Hawaii, which is great. There's a lot of different cultures there, but there's not the culture. There's no like Black culture there, really. I mean, there are some, but not predominantly. Or I shouldn't even say predominantly, but even like the history classes there, they focus a lot really on Hawaiian history, which is super important as well. But there's a lack of education on my side for the Black community. So,
and I think probably, I'm guessing, even when you were in Montana, you weren't with a lot of different cultures.
I mean,
either.
it's very white culture there, right? Yeah. Which is part of the reason that I ended up leaving, just because I grew up around a lot of different cultures, and I really did miss that. So, like, coming to the coast, there are a lot of reasons why I moved to Washington, but one of those was a lot of the collective cultures here, and then with many different cultures, which I think people forget sometimes, is that comes a lot of like diverse foods, which is great. Like I absolutely love food. I mean, that's one small part, but yeah.
But basically, in that time, there was a lot of learning on Abe's part, a lot of sharing on my part, and us trying to come together to kind of understand, where each other was coming from and our perspectives. I think you totally understand now. I think you've you've understood now.
I understand, but
not fully understand, but like you get it. Like when I say certain things, or like when I share an experience, you're like, okay, like I understand you better now. I can like
than before,
than before. which is really nice. And I'm really glad you did that work. I mean,
Yeah.
the work could have been done earlier,
Could have
but
been.
you know, from your perspective, I mean, I can also see kind of, you know, how that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we were strong. We were stronger for that period of time.
Yeah, and then plus the pandemic with it.
Plus the pandemic and all the anxiety that came with that. That was actually the first time I started dealing with like panic attacks.
During the pandemic?
During the pandemic.
I feel like a lot of people, like I kind of heard about,
yeah,
like during that time. Even me, I never got really anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been, you know, a roller coaster, even for everyone that, you know, went through the pandemic, a roller coaster just for the pandemic itself. But we got out, we exited, and yeah, and so we ended up going, let me get my thoughts together here. So you had ended up moving out of your parents' house because you were living with your parents, your mom at the time, and I wanted to move in together. Probably what? 2 years in?
Oh no, earlier than that.
Oh,
earlier than that.
Like what? 1 year? 1 year.
Probably 1 year or less.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I feel like
it
8
didn't
months.
seem. The pandemic sped it up. It felt like I knew you for years. That's
I feel
why.
like we spent every other day together.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together.
I was still in school.
Yeah.
But I was doing online school, and I would come over to Abe's apartment. I'd do school from Abe's apartment.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd go on my Zoom or whatever, and so we were together all the time.
Yeah.
So it was like we did like 100 dates in like a short amount of time. But yeah, so I ended up moving out on my own because I felt like it was important for me to get that time to be on my own, figure things out. Also, since I was in school, like I needed to just, you know, work on my projects and all that. Abe and I were still dating. Abe had wanted to move in eventually. And so we had talked about moving in. But then I decided, like, no, I don't want to do that yet.
Yeah.
And then a while later, we decided to move in with each other.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk back and forth of where we were going to move in together.
Yeah.
We ultimately settled on the apartment that I was living in at the time. And so, again, I didn't have to do any moving. I got, like, the easier end, I should say, of the deal, but really, you like changed the whole apartment. Like, I mean, in a good way. Like, it
was very much bachelor pad when I came in here. I mean, we didn't change like too much, but for example,
I mean, you made it very homey, I should say.
Yeah, I tried to make it
comfy.
homey. At one point, we had like pillows on the couch and stuff, and.
I mean, I had a bed frame that was just, a metal bed frame?
Yeah, just those ones that just have the bottom piece. They don't have any kind of headboard or anything like that. They're on wheels.
Yeah. They come apart. They're easy to move.
Yeah, and Abe had like this whole mismatched bedspread situation
I had
happening.
a quilt that was
the quilt's
orange.
Fine. But like,
and,
it just didn't, it was, you know, it was like a single guy lived here, and so
I had my 3D printer.
Yeah, he had a piano, like a little piano keyboard type situation. Anyways, I was like, we need to get like a bed frame in here. We need side tables. We need matching lamps. Like, we need a nice like what would you call it? Like a comforter. We need the multiple, you know, piece bed sheet set.
Yeah.
And so that's what I brought, and I think it made the room look much better.
It does, yeah. It still looks like
and,
it, even
you know,
a year and a half later.
Yeah, inviting. We're almost on 2 years living together.
2 years, yeah. Coming up in February of, or what is it? February? No, October, right?
Yeah,
October.
Yeah, so next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I ended up basically moving in earlier.
Well, you didn't actually like like set a date to move in. You
I
would like
didn't.
come over and then leave, and then come over and stay a
I'd
little
be
bit
here
longer.
for like 5 days,
and then you
I'd
go back.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'd be gone for like 2 days.
I'm like,
But I slowly was bringing over stuff
Yeah.
after a while, and yeah. So that's, I don't know. I think now this has become our space.
yeah, for sure.
Which is really nice. We have pictures up, like on our fridge. My stuff's in here, my books, my, I don't know, clothes.
I mean, we have a pretty big closet,
Yeah.
like almost kind of like a walk-in. I say that with quotations because it's like, I mean,
kinda
it's
like a
like
walk-in
3
closet.
feet walk-in, but I remember I had to get like clear out half the closet. I'm like, yeah.
Yes. And when I moved in with Abe, I had a lot of stuff. And I had to, I mean, I got rid of a lot of stuff. I donated a lot, got rid of a ton of clothes.
We got a storage unit, which
We got a
helped.
storage unit.
I mean, that helped me a lot too, just because.
The storage unit's
Yeah.
nice to have. And luckily it's in our building,
Yeah.
so we don't have to go
I
far.
always said I would never get a storage unit ever,
Yeah.
but living in an
That was
apartment
is
yeah.
the situation. But I feel like I'm still continually always going through things just to make sure I'm
Especially living in
having
an
less and
apartment,
less.
I think a lot of times people that live in houses, you have a lot of extra space, or
Right.
I shouldn't say extra space. You have more space than you have with an apartment.
Yeah.
And so anything you bring into an apartment, we have a pretty big apartment. I think it's like 600 to 700 and something square feet.
Yeah.
But anytime you bring anything into the apartment, you're like, where are we going to put this?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, Alexa and I had talked about getting married, and
we were starting to see a future with each other.
I wanted to buy a house, but you're like, I have to be proposed to first at least. And so.
And Abe's stipulation was that we had to live together for a year before that even happened.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure before we went, all the way. And so, we ended up going to Italy like we talked about. One of the things we didn't talk about in our Italy podcasts were that I proposed in Italy.
Yep, and we got engaged.
Yeah. So we've been engaged for like a month and a half, something like that. August 5th is when I proposed.
Yeah.
So a little over a month and a half. But did it in front of the Colosseum, and the whole proposal, that we can talk about that next.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the
podcast.
next episode.
But yeah,
But it was fun, and it made the trip so much more special because we could enjoy our engagement.
so thank you again for joining us on Get Out and Enjoy Life podcast, or GOEL.
We hope you get out and enjoy life in any way that you can, whether that's going on a trip, hanging out with friends, cooking, talking with somebody you haven't for a long time. We hope you're able to do that, and we hope you continue joining us on our journey.
Thank you for joining us again on this podcast and episode. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.